Good afternoon. Hello. I'm stuck. Welcome. I see the swiping went a lot better today. I just wanted to say to you guys before we get started, I'm really excited about our guest. But first, I want to remind you that the announcement that came out earlier this week for this class, a lot of these events are going to be offered, and there's going to be 2 different ways you can get credit, and this is one of them. Last week's grant writing workshop is another example. You can attend it in person and get credit for attending, and that's it, you're done. Or a lot of these events are going to have a virtual option. So later on, there'll be a video released. If there's anything where you have to watch a video to participate, there's going to be a quiz. So just make sure you keep up with that in Blackboard. Obviously, you can't do both. You can only get credit for one event one way or the other. And remember that the only events that give you points are the ones that are color-coded in the schedule. Next week, we have composer Augusta Reed Thomas, so you'll want to make sure you're here for that one as well. So I'm going to turn it over to Sarah Williams, and we'll get started. Thanks.
Hi, good afternoon. I last saw all of you as a floating head via Zoom a few weeks ago, but I'm happy to see you here in person. Happy Friday. My name is Sarah Williams. Again, I'm an associate professor and area coordinator of the music history here at the School of Music. I'm also the coordinator of the Louisa E. Peak Music and Culture Colloquium Series, at which you are sitting right now. If this is your first Peak Colloquium event, the public event series, this is a public event series, and it's dedicated to showcasing diverse programming and guests, especially emerging scholars and artists. Named after the late musicologist, Professor Louisa Eitel Peak Dickerman, who served on the School of Music faculty from 1968 to 1994, the Peak Colloquium offers the School of Music, University, and Columbia communities with free workshops, concerts, scholarly talks, and film screenings that engage with musical histories of the past and present, performance practices, and global cultures. Today, we're very pleased to host Joseph Young in conversation with the Dean of the School of Music, Taylor Harding. Praised for his suavely adventurous programming, Joseph Young is increasingly recognized as one of the most gifted conductors of his generation. Currently, Joseph is the music director of the Berkeley Symphony in California. Prior appointments include assistant conductor of the Atlanta Symphony, resident conductor of the Phoenix Symphony, and the League of American Orchestras conducting fellow with the Buffalo Philharmonic and the Baltimore Symphony. Joseph frequently appears as a conductor across the country and around the world. As a passionate educator, Joseph is the artistic director of Ensembles for the Peabody Conservatory and resident conductor of the National Youth Orchestra, USA, at Carnegie Hall. Joseph is a recipient of the 2015 Schulte Foundation U.S. Career Assistance Award for Young Conductors, an award he also won in 2008 and in 2014. In 2013, Joseph was a semifinalist in the Gustav Mahler International Conducting Competition in Bamberg, Germany. In 2011, he was one out of 6 conductors featured in the League of American Orchestra's prestigious Bruno Walter National Conductor Preview. And just to let you know that Joseph Young will be taking some questions at the end of this presentation, and we'll have a microphone on a stand there, or we can walk around and bring it to you. And the conversation will be guided today by our Dean, Taylor Harding, who is the Ira McKissick Koger Professor of the Arts at the University of South Carolina, where he recently served as Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs and Provost, interim for 2019-2020. A passionate advocate for advancing the impact of higher education music on American communities, he is devoted to organizations whose missions are consistent with this ethos. As president of the College Music Society from 2005 to 2006, and as president of their foundation, the CMS Fund, from 2009 to 2015, he helped create the Engagement and Outreach Initiative, where efforts of the music professoriate are articulated with national partners to meet common musical and civic goals. At Carolina, he was instrumental in forming SPARK, Carolina's Leadership Laboratory, a systematic curricular and co-curricular exploration of music advocacy, music entrepreneurship, and community engagement. His 2014 TEDx talk, Music and Hope Towards a More Musical America, constitutes a public expression of his interests and work. A frequent presenter on future issues for university music units and their leadership, he remains an active composer, earning commissions, performances, and recordings around the world. Please help me welcome Joseph Young and Taylor Harding.
Thank you. Thank you. We've had a number of sessions in this room over the years where presenters sit down in chairs around a little table on a carpet, but I've never been able to do this. It's an interesting sensation to sit on this stage like this in front of our student body. I hope that you enjoy the next 45 minutes or so. We are so delighted to be joined by Joseph Young today. Dr. Williams was reading his bio, and he mentioned to me as she was reading the bio that he had left out the fact that he is an alum of our School of Music, which of course is a feature of the Mahogany Music Festival this weekend, anchored by our great alums. And we don't have many alums that are better than Joseph Young. So I wanted to make sure we said that first, because it folds very nicely into the first thing that I want to ask you, and that is, we got a lot of young people that are interested in musical lives in their futures that are in this room today, and you have made a musical life for yourself. Can you talk a little bit about the goals that you had as a young person for a musical life, how it led to the decisions that you made, and if you changed your mind along the way, or if your goals shifted, or if your dreams evolved in some way? It'd be great if you could mention those too. Thanks so much, Joey.
Hello. It's nice to be here. I think my dreams, when I was 16, I went to the Governor's School for the Arts when it was just a summer program. And during that program, you know, it's about immersing in the life of a musician, you know, doing the private lessons, taking music theory for the first time and being confused, taking those musical history courses, and taking the lessons. And one of the things that they had us do was take a conducting course. And it was right then at 16, I said, this is what I want to do. I want to conduct. Because, you know, being immersive in that musical life, you're still kind of wondering which direction you want to take. And even when you're in college, you're trying to figure out which direction in this life of music do I want to take. I was lucky enough to say that I want to be a conductor. Didn't know what that meant, didn't know how to get there. I just knew that sound and me being on that podium and experiencing that sound that way was how I wanted to do that. When I was a trumpet player, and everyone used to say, trumpet players? Everyone said I had a beautiful vibrato. Everyone said, but it was actually my nerves. My hands were just shaking. And there was something about conducting where I can get that nervous tick out, you know, that energy that you have in conducting, and I just loved that part of it. And I always knew I wanted to make music in some way, but I just didn't think that I could get rid of that beautiful vibrato on the trumpet. And so I was just so happy to figure out that way of being this introverted person, but emoting in some way. So the question was, did that direction change? Did that musical life and did that vision become clearer? I would say when I was here at University of South Carolina, it was still not clear. You know, one of the things that was so special about being a music major was you get to just dip your fingers in everything. And I was just trying to find my way and still be curious and explore musically. You know, the idea of being a music ed major, I knew that end result of the degree is that I could teach. But I said, you know, I really want to go to graduate school for conducting. Still didn't know how to do that. but then I student taught. I student taught at Dutch, I think it's still here, Dutch Fork High School and Middle School, and I just fell in love with it. And my dreams were diverted and said, I really think I want to teach, and still try to figure out what does it mean to be a conductor? What do I need to do to make this happen? And when I had that reality of teaching, I taught at Daniel High School in near Clemson. I shouldn't say that. Near Clemson University, and I taught marching band. I did the marching band. I did the wind ensembles. I did a great jazz band. But still, in the back of my head, I was like, I really want to conduct those big works, conduct pro, as people had said. So trying to figure that out at the same time. So I would use my professional development money as a teacher to go to these conducting workshops throughout the United States. And I went to one in Santa Cruz, California. I sent a tape of me conducting my band program, but I also, when I was a student here, put together my own orchestra of friends. I paid them with pizza and bubbly beverages. And they read, Mozart serenades, Tchaikovsky symphonies for me, and they would give me tips on my conducting, and I would videotape myself. And I actually had a recital. I put together a recital, and I'm not sure if that was allowed, but I had friends in the orchestra department that got the music for me, and we had a concert downstairs in the basement, I believe, where we used to have the concert band rehearse, or the chorus rehearse, and I had all this footage of me being this novice conductor, and I sent that off to this conducting workshop, not thinking that I would get in, because this is, they're high-level conductors who have gone to graduate school, who have done the work, who have studied the art of conducting. Me, I really haven't. I sent that tape in to this conducting workshop, and I got in. And then I stood up there and conducted, and this teacher said, "You teach high school? What are you doing at teaching high school?" I love teaching high school. That's what my degree said. You keep conducting. He gave me that encouragement. His name is Michael Morgan, and he actually just passed away a few weeks ago. And he gave me this recommendation for this other workshop in Santa Cruz, California. It's called the Cabrillo Contemporary Music Festival. And again, getting the same reaction. But I had I still had this wish of, how do I do this? I've been applying to some graduate schools and not getting in because, I'm not experienced. I went up to the teacher of this workshop and said, I really just want to go to graduate school for conducting. I don't know what to do. And I remember the words, "Why don't you come study with me?" And that changed my life. She came to South Carolina, and actually I met her in Charleston because she was working with the Charleston Symphony. She gave me a free lesson, and she said, I really want to try to give you this opportunity because I see some talent in you. And she said, I'm creating this fellowship just for you at the Peabody Conservatory, and I want you to be my assistant with the Baltimore Symphony. And again, that just changed my life. And, one of the things that when I tell that story is that I try to knock on doors, open doors, and do it the right way. But, it's like I kind of knocked, threw a rock through the window and got in through the back door. And I feel like musically, there's so many different avenues to get to that end result that we have to tap into. And I think that's been my life in so many ways. It's like as a conductor, and I would say as a conductor of color, the opportunities seem different in how I get to the same place as my peers. But I've been persistent in trying to navigate around what's important to me and being persistent about creating those dreams for myself. I have no idea if I answered your question, But
that was great, and it's a great start too. I want to pick up on what you said towards the end, because it's amazing how common the stories of successes of young musicians are, hanging on the nature of luck or being in the right place. It doesn't take the place of talent or of hard work, but of luck and of finding that important mentor. And of course, Marian Alsop was for you that important mentor, and undoubtedly you've had others too, including Michael Morgan, who I didn't know you had worked with. That's really great. So the question is, can you say a little bit more about what mentors have meant, not just those two, but others? And is there anything you can tell our students about how to recognize those moments when mentors may not be as communicative with them about their desire to help young people, and it's that sort of natural way that young people and their mentors have to kind of find each other. It doesn't always happen easily or naturally. Sometimes it takes a little work. Sometimes it takes a little digging. Not every time is a mentor an extrovert who reaches out to students. Sometimes it takes some work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I tell that story, I'm telling it as someone who's really excited that Marian Alsop said she would mentor me. But you have to, I didn't realize, this is a very, Marian Alsop is, she was the conductor of the Baltimore Symphony. She's one of the, she was the first woman to be a music director of a major American orchestra. She's the music director of the Vienna Symphony right now, and we also teach conducting together at the Peabody Conservatory. But I tell the story as someone who was excited that this amazing conductor gave me the opportunity, but then I realized, she's also a mentor to so many other people, and she's also a busy conductor. And for me, trying to navigate around, how to approach someone that is at that magnitude was kind of a mind game for me. I was always, and one of the things with being assistant conductor, this is the game that we play all the time, because we get to meet so many amazing people, and I always tell myself, I just need one question about my career, and to get something out of them, and see where it leads, and ask them one question about music. How did you? What does this piece mean to you? Because all we want to hear sometimes is that inspiration, and sometimes those asks turn into conversations, and those conversations, when they hear you talk, right, and you start exchanging towards each other, they're like, I really believe, I want to know more about you. But you have to have the initiative to, just have one question ready to go for a mentor. Do they all turn into mentors? No. I felt like I won when they said, here's my email address. Keep me in the loop of what you're doing, because I kind of accomplished that goal. So I start off with one question.
That one question thing is unbelievably good advice. I didn't say this very well before, but you're going to encounter mentors who are introverts and they're great teachers, or they wouldn't be in the position to be a mentor, but they don't know how to necessarily to reach out to every individual student. And if your personality is such that it doesn't align necessarily with theirs, it's going to be harder for them to reach out. And that advice, that one question, it breaks the ice. It allows a teacher that you're close to, that you respect and love and work with, to take on a whole new realm with you if it works out after you ask that one question. I know that I think about the students that I've mentored over the years too, and the ones that seem to have achieved the most or are the happiest, doing more of what they want to do, were ones that sought out me as the mentor rather than my noticing their talent and seeking them out. I think that's the valuable lesson there.
And I feel like I'm now turning the corner where, people are asking me to mentor them. And one of the things that like you said, mentors come in different personalities as well. For me, I'm more introverted than I may seem when I'm not on the podium, when I'm not speaking in public. For me, you know, it takes a lot for someone to get me out of that. And I have students who would ask one question and they know that's all they can do for today. They can't go any further. But they're persistent, and you know, they build that relationship. So again, meet them where they are.
Let's shift a little bit and talk about what you value and what you might have seen over the course of your reasonably young career that challenge those values when you're working in a particular environment or with a particular piece or with particular individuals. So much of what we do or what we will do in the future as musicians is based upon what we value as individuals and thinking broadly about society. And I love for our guests to share with our young students what they value, how they value it, and when they see challenges to those values, how they deal with them. Can you say a word about that?
Musically, I would say, you know, I feel that I've been given a responsibility to really take this art and not. One of the things that you're here at a music school. I want you to remember you are here getting those kind of fundamentals. You're coming here learning that those musical theory, music theory, music history, but you're also here to question those things. You're also here to take your understanding and build on this gift and this authentic this music that no one can take away from us. But we're not here to preserve, we're not a museum. We're here to kind of take it and rediscover it and put it into perspectives of our own selves. And for me, what I value about what I do is that I have this perspective to really rediscover, reimagine what music means to the people that I come in contact with. And for me, I feel like that's my purpose. You know, when you see a conductor or you see someone who plays a recital, their responsibility is not only to play Tchaikovsky like Tchaikovsky wrote it, but it's also to play Tchaikovsky for you today. What is Tchaikovsky for you today? You know, for me, I can't, what I value is that this is a living art, that this art needs to be preserved, but also reimagined and rediscovered. And I use that platform to think of what projects, what I'm going to do for the future. And that's one reason why I keep teaching. The one reason that keeps me humble teaching, because it's the perspective of the musicians in front of me that change, you know, what this music means to me. You know, I'm a young conductor. I hope I will always be a young conductor. But my perspective of Shostakovich 5 is completely different than someone who has experienced Stalin's reign, you know. But I can share some type of experience of resilience, protest, heartache in my life and what I've experienced to bring perspective to this old piece. And I want to keep that kind of connection alive as we keep playing and celebrating these types of works. Does that make sense?
It does. It's great. I bring up the word challenges because I think that young people that have a desire to make a life in music, which may or may not include a career in music, encounter challenges of one kind or another along the way to do that. Sometimes those challenges are their own ability to meet their own expectations, but those challenges might also be that their parents or that their friends or that their society or other musicians they work with or audiences hope that they will do something different than they want to do it. And how do they, how you've obviously experienced this along the way, how do you address that? I was trying to get at that through the values question, but it may be something more specific than talking about what we value. It might just be people challenging, is this a good decision for you to continue to be a musician? Is it a good decision for you to decide to give up what you were doing in one place to go do it somewhere else? Do you encounter musicians who see the living art of music differently than you when you're leading them, and how do you deal with that? I mean, the question is sort of how do you deal with a challenge to what it is that you feel destined to do?
When I was in college, I bottled all of that up. One of those things is I was very stubborn, and again, like if a door's closed, I'm figuring out how to get through the back window. And I was very adamant about those kind of challenges. But these days, I'm trying to find people who are going to be on the Joseph Young team, because that is important. Because one of the things is you're going to face these challenges. You don't have to face these challenges alone. And I would like you to start figuring out who your advocates are in those, and having discussions about what this means to you and how you're going to move forward. Because if you start bottling those things up like I did, you're going to break a window and the alarm's going to go off. I'll just say it that way. Someone is not going to be very happy. But some of the challenges, I'm trying to figure out how to steer. One of the biggest challenges for me is, I am a black conductor, and which is not normal for the United States or the world to see a black young conductor. And dealing with being the only one for a long time was a big challenge for me, because having individuals or industry take advantage of who you are and not looking at the talent that you may have, and not looking at me as someone who has something more to offer other than being a black conductor. And how did I navigate that? Well, personally, one of the things I had to do was for my emotional value is to tell myself I'm not just an exceptional black man. I am a part of a lineage of amazing black artists. And I needed to get that in my system as quick as possible so I can continue to feel good about moving forward, because that was a challenge, a personal challenge for me. You have to really figure out how to redirect those kind of emotional walls that you put up for yourself, and take a positive spin on it. And for me to understand that there was the Michael Morgans, there's the Calvin Simons behind me, there's the Thomas Wilkins behind me, there's amazing opera artists that I would love to work with, and then there's people in front of me. I just told myself to get in line, and I felt more comfortable about it. And in the industry, I had to make that case for myself too. You know, and convince them that I have something to offer. And now I'm rambling, but that's one particular challenge that helped me, that I tried to figure out on my own.
That's really, really fantastic, Joseph. And you and I have never talked about that before, and it's great to hear how you have the intentional way you've decided to deal with who you are and what you do and how it's going to affect others. I think the lesson there that I hope we all get is that the things in our lives that are the most meaningful and that occur in the most profound ways are things that we are intentional about. Doesn't mean that they don't have luck involved, like we talked about before. It doesn't mean that they don't involve others. But I'm not sure at really great things that happen to you that you think are great yourself, that others don't judge as great, but that you think has happened great to yourself is something that you had to be intentional about. Those things don't happen accidentally. And the fact that you looked at your own identity and made intentional decisions about what you would do with that identity in your work and how you approached others is an incredibly important lesson, not only for young musicians, but for all musicians. So,
I love the way you put that, but I also want to say that I was kind of intentional from day one here at University of South Carolina, you know. And it may not have looked that way while I was there. I think I was more, I would say I was more curious about what was going on. I took music theory, but I also had private lessons in compositions because I wanted to know how people wrote symphonies. I had my own recital as an undergrad. You know, I went to ballets. I was this curious person, but in the back of my head, I was being very intentional about this is what I want to do, and I know this is what I need. So, you know, that intention is so important starting now.
Yeah, right. And being intentional doesn't mean being stubborn. It means deciding that there is something that you want to pursue, and you make decisions about doing it, and you don't wait for things to happen that may or may not happen. Just a moment ago when we were talking about your being intentional and keeping it in the back of your mind and being open to things as they emerged, that's why it's so important to have a really robust and sophisticated school of music so that you can carve your way through that curiosity. That when you're curious, there is a resource for you to go seek. And the faculty here, of course, are the greatest resource that I can imagine for those of you who want a musical career to seek. It was like that when you were here, too. The faculty was terrific then, of course. It
Definitely.
wasn't that long ago, right? Yeah.
No. 2004, I graduated.
Yeah.
I also, what was I going to say? The idea of figuring out how to manage yourselves as an artist is such an important aspect now. It's now taught in schools, like the entrepreneurship of an artist, but it wasn't really taught when I was a student. You know, those ideas of sending in my a Conductor's CV is the videos that I was telling you about. That's my CV. You know, sending in those CVs and DVDs. We were sending in DVDs. I was mailing DVDs and headshots, and you know, and I really want to conduct your orchestra here. Everyone take it. And trying to, you know, just be Joseph Young, LLC, for myself at the beginning. And I wish I had those classes to, you know, figure out how to grant writing 101. All of these things that are really important now, because I think those are going to elevate the ideas that you have. One of the things that I know, I had many ideas as a student here, but I just didn't know how to execute them or where to start. And I think taking those opportunities to understand how these little things like grant writings, how to present yourself, how to reach out to mentors are so important for the artist, but also or anyone in anything that you want to be, because you can then take those initiatives that are so important.
So, Joseph, you come from a musical family, is that right? I mean, we know that your brother is a really outstanding musician and also a college professor. Can you talk a little bit about what it was like for you even before you figured out that you wanted to be a conductor?
Well, I don't think I came from a very musical family. My mom was singing in the choir. My dad can't clap on beats. I'm the oldest of the family, so I started playing musical instruments. I grew up in Goose Creek, South Carolina, and my dad wanted me to do something to keep me out of trouble. And I was horrible at basketball. I was horrible at soccer. So we were running out of choices. And the band program came along, and the only instrument I could make a sound out of was a trumpet. And for me, that was my kind of saving grace for a introverted boy like me. It's because the band program, as some of you may have been a part of in South Carolina, which is really, really dominant programs, it's family. And for me, I would walk after school to my aunt's house, who lives right close to my middle school. But after a while, I would just stay at the middle school and just practice, all after school. And that kind of changed the perspective of my family. My brother saw that I loved it, so he became a musician. My sisters saw that we loved it, and she became a musician too. And being a part of this ecosystem of SC, the Band Directors Association, all the activities that we do, all states, the marching bands, the concert festivals, and having an amazing band director who is very musical himself, just kind of started forming these perspectives for me. For me, my brother loved playing in church. For me, I did not like playing in church because my vibrato was beautiful. I kept my music making for myself. And one of the things that, when I tell the story of me starting to conduct, is I would sit in my room by myself, listening to these recordings and conducting Mahler symphonies as a 12-year-old. So my upbringing in music was, I would say, kind of a saving grace, but it was also just a moment for this shy young man to emote and find emotion in life. So that's what I feel my young musical life meant more to me, is that it helped me just develop as an emotional young man. But yes, my brother is an amazing saxophonist. He teaches at the School of the Arts in North Carolina, and we kind of started pushing each other. When he started getting good, I started to get worried that he's going to get better than me. So then I just had to start conducting to do something completely different. But having that kind of counterpart in my family musically was a great upbringing.
That's great. I wanted you to mention your sibling rivalry, and the only way I could do it was to ask you a question about it, so sorry about that. We're going to take questions in just a second, but before we do, you mentioned just briefly a little bit ago about responsibility that a musician has, not just to their own musical expectations, but to a world that needs music. Can you say just a word about what you think about your responsibility to a world that needs music, and then maybe relate it to what you might suggest they do with respect to building a philosophy around what the world expects and needs from music?
I want to start with the second part, is I want you to just think about who you are. I think everyone has a perspective, and to start figuring out what that is. You know, we all come from diverse backgrounds, and you have something special that someone out there wants to know. If you start thinking about that right now while you are in school, I think you're going to find some beautiful art back there that you want to express. I think an artist's responsibility is to go out in the world to share their gifts. The package deal that my industry keeps saying is that, you know, musicians are citizens of the world. Well, everyone's citizens of the world, but what does that mean? You know, we're citizens of the world, but your gift belongs to you, and it's your responsibility to share that. For me, I feel my responsibility is to share the diverse voices that are in the world today. One of the things that I feel that is important to my music making and me as an artist is I have to do justice to music, to people, to bring music to people who should have music. To bring music, to bring to light the voices who were silenced long ago, and bring that music to life. You know, I have this responsibility of creating justice around what I do as a musician. People have always said what we do, community engagement. What is community engagement? I think community engagement is such a big umbrella for us to think about. Because community engagement can mean you go play at a nursing home. You can go bring music to Mozart to young babies. You can bring music into the prison system. All of these kind of things, getting music out there. But I think everyone needs to figure out, under that big umbrella, what do you feel comfortable doing? One of the things, I meet so many young people who, we talk about this entrepreneurship and musicians as citizens, but they feel uncomfortable because they're shy young musicians. They don't feel like they can go out and go in a prison system and play for prisoners, or they don't feel comfortable going into a hospital yet. I want you to take those small opportunities of who you are and shining a light to someone in the community, whether it's volunteering with an organization that does these kind of opportunities, whether it's bringing your own perspective to a library. I want you to find those little things to start off with, because if you start thinking small, by the time you are, my age, you'll feel more comfortable doing these things. Justice for me is the word that I would use, is my responsibility. And justice is such a broad term, but it gives me opportunities to think of everything that I do. Okay, I'm doing this concert with this orchestra. What am I going to bring this community? Well, I don't think they know this Black composer, so I'm going to bring this piece and have them experience that. I don't think for this orchestra, they don't know this amazing Brazilian guitarist, because they've not had a Brazilian guitarist ever. So I'm going to bring that to this orchestra. This community that I'm going to connect with doesn't know their Black community. How can I help bring justice to that? So trying to figure out those ways of bringing justice is my responsibility.
Wow, that's a powerful message. Can we bring up the lights? We got a few minutes left for questions. There's a microphone here in the center of the hall. I would appreciate it if you have a question, you'd come down to the mic. It'll save time from running around trying to hand a mic. Do we have any questions? Great. Please, don't raise your hand, just get in line. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Noah. My question is, so I'm a trumpeter, and oftentimes I'm tokenized as a female trumpeter, right? So, and that goes around, and one of the things I was wondering about, that a lot of people go around, a lot of other women trumpeters also market themselves as female trumpeters, so that keeps that token going. Do you confront other people who also, like black conductors, who also market themselves as black conductors? Or do you kind of do your thing trying to be presented as a conductor without that?
That's a great question. I don't confront them because they are in line with me. You know, one of the things is our lines can go in different directions. We can take our careers, our personal careers, in different directions. For me, you know, I identify as a black conductor. I proudly identify as a black conductor. But, you know, one of the things that has helped me is people around me identify me as a black conductor who has the talent, who has more to offer. And I think for me is to make sure that I market myself as a black conductor that has more to offer. And that's what I would say.
Julia, go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Young. It's very great to be able to talk to you. Conducting is a very interesting field in that there's no exact manual for how to conduct. And I think that that's a really appealing thing that a lot of conductors look forward to exploring. And I was wondering how you developed your personal conducting style and how you would advise musicians to do the same with their music.
First of all, have I met you before?
Yes.
I thought at the School of the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was trying to figure that out. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so how did you go about developing your personal conducting style, since all conductors conduct very differently? And then how would you suggest for musicians to do the same with their own music?
You know, we are all influenced by what we see as conductors. You know, I remember there was this amazing poster for the Cabrillo Music Festival. It was a workshop where they had all the students in the poster and the teacher, and everyone had the same pose. It wasn't planned that way, but we were very influenced by what the teacher had taught us, and everyone had the same thing. You know, as you continue to see more people and see other conducting styles, you turn into what that means to you. I think emotionally and intellectually, you can create your own style of conducting, but physically, it's very influenced. It's almost, I mean, it's not dance, but there is some. The influence of others gets enthralled in there. So one of the things I always tell conductors, don't worry about you looking like someone else, because that kind of happens, but it's about the intellect and about the way you study a score that you become your own person, and how you approach a piece is the person that you come to. So one of the things I tell people, you can do everything I do on the podium. Just pretend you're me to make you feel comfortable. That just to get those ideas into your hands, and then all of a sudden they start morphing into who you really are. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
Great. Look, we're going to have one more question. We're out of time, and then we'll have you ask your question privately so we can let everybody go. You all right with that? Great. Sorry about that.
Hi.
Go ahead.
I'm also Julia. There we go. My question was about your music education experience. Me being a music educator, or future music educator, wanting to talk about how your dreams of being a conductor worked along with your teaching experience, and how when you finally had to say goodbye. How did that happen? I know that's really hard, but I think about that a lot.
I think about it all the time. I was almost in tears when I said goodbye. And then they were almost in tears, and then they were applauding. I remember exactly. I was at Clemson University. We were preparing for concert festival. We just finished our rehearsal, and I'm shaking. Those shakes came back, and I told them. But one of the things what really resonates, and I'm glad you asked this question, music educators, you are musicians first. Show them music. They want to be inspired musically, and what my students saw was me so inspired musically that they wanted to come along with it. You know, for me, it was at the go tell on roadie status, you know, middle school, I'm like, but we want to keep inspiring them to make music. For me, that was my driving force, and I love that they embraced that. Said goodbye, but you know, one of the amazing stories is last year or 2 years ago, I conducted in North Carolina, and at the backstage door, they said there's some people that wanted to see you. 30 kids from my high school were there to see my concert, which again, just bawling. No, be musicians, be the music.
Great way to end this. Let me just say, next week is exactly like this week for attendance. Everybody is back in here again, all 3 classes for Augusta Reed Thomas, who is here on a residency with us, a Pulitzer finalist composer. Until then, have a great week, and please come up and ask your question. Thank you.